With less than 24 hours to the Osun governorship election, the state is now under a full security lockdown. The Nigerian police force has deployed over 15,000 officers, 30 commissioners of police, helicopters and drones, while a 24-hour curfew has taken effect across all local government areas. The Independent National Electoral Commission has confirmed that both sensitive and non-sensitive materials have been distributed to registration area centers and polling units statewide. With ad hoc officials already in place, vigilante groups and non-state outfits have been barred from election security, and mobile courts are on standby to prosecute electoral offenders. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has charged INEC and security agencies to ensure a peaceful, transparent and credible election, urging voters to come out without fear. But the question remains, will this unprecedented deployment guarantee peace and credibility, or could it intimidate voters, raise doubts about neutrality? All right, now let's bring the conversation right here to the studio as I bring in my guest to unpack all of this. I have Martin Obono, is the Executive Director, TAP Initiative. He joins from Osun State. I also have Dr. Wambu Gabriel, is the Director General, Center for Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness. He also joins from Osun State. Cynthia Bamalu, Director of Programs, Yaga Africa, joins this conversation from Abuja. And Isa Sanusi, Executive Director, Amnesty International, Nigeria, joins from Abuja. It's great to have you, gentlemen and lady.
Thanks for having me. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Let me start with you, Mr. Gabriel, Dr. Gabriel. Permit me. I mean, looking at the build-up to this election, the tension, the anxiety, pretty seems so much. We've had governorship elections, in the past, off-cycle governorship election, but this Osun State election seems very peculiar. I think I'd ask all of you the same question. Why do you think this is? Is it because it's the final election to the general elections that would happen in the country? All eyes seems to be on Osun State. Even the president, gave express orders to this effect. Why is this election peculiar? And I'm starting with you, Dr. Gabriel.
Thank you so much for having me. You see, this election is very peculiar because of a couple of reasons. First of all, this is an election where our observers that are deployed to the field have observed that at least 40 persons have been killed in pre-election related violence across the 30 local government areas of Osun State. And it is not just that they are killed. We are yet to see, very clearly the perpetrators of this heinous crime, being arrested and made to face, the wrath of the law. We've not really seen it in very clear terms. This election is also very peculiar because the president and commander-in-chief, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is actually from Osun State, and, be it as it may, this is his origin. And the political tension is very steep here, where the ruling party in the state, has defected following the multiple problems in the PDP, has moved to Accord Party, and has even adopted the president, the current president, Tinubu, as the presidential candidate for the next general election, 2027 general elections. And then we have also seen a situation where the EFCC, unanimously froze the account, the main government account, for a while, and that is the account that is used to pay salaries and all that, building up to the main elections. Now, these are characteristics that are rare to be seen in all the states. We do not see, we had an election in Ekiti State. We did not see the EFCC, take very drastic actions like this in Ekiti State. We did not also see this level of, killing, heinous killing. So there have been accusations and counter-accusations. Some persons have also, some major political stakeholders, even some governors from the, a particular governor from the South region came here and made some utterances that are unbecoming of somebody holding such high esteemed political position. Then we also saw a situation where a serving senator did mention, about, that some persons should be killed, even when they are not seen, that their families, their wives and children should be killed. So these are issues that are very, very serious. In fact, the lives and property, the primary purpose of government is to protect lives and property. And then we are seeing a complete violation of desecration of the human life, here in Osun State. And that is unbecoming, it's not acceptable, and highly condemnable in all its
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Gabriel. I mean, you said a lot. I would be going straight to Cynthia on this one. Part of what you said is that observers, if I got you correctly on record, have it that about 40 persons have been killed in the course of this election process, which is pretty much worrisome. We also understand that about 15,000 security personnel, I'm talking about police right now, members of the security force have been scattered across the state. Our correspondent even did confirm helicopters hovering, in some parts of the state consistently. I mean, looking at this, the same question to you too. Osun State, why do we have all eyes on this election? We've had off-cycle election, we had in Ekiti, we had in Edo. The intensity wasn't as much as what we are seeing right now, or the anxiety in Osun State. So why?
Well, interesting, and good evening from wishable Osun State. I think what key points to note is that, one, I mean, this is the last elections, off-cycle elections before the general elections, 2027 elections, but also you need to understand the political dynamics of the Southwest region when it comes to the national politics of Nigeria. And if you know, Osun is one of the opposition state national when you put it to the national politics of the country. This is, if you add Osun, then maybe Oyo. Those are two states that are still currently under the leadership of an opposition party and not the ruling party at the national level. So it's also going to be competitive because you have the ruling party at the national trying to return trying to take over in the state. You also have the incumbent from the opposition trying to retain the state, and so there is that competition, because what happens is in Osun also has a direct correlation to the national politics for the general elections. But also Osun actually has a history of quite competitive, fiercely competitive elections, and so that's, for me, it's important. But also this is the second election to be conducted with the new Electoral Act, which had some innovative provisions like the mandatory electronic transmission of results. The use of downloadable PVCs will be tested for the first time here in Osun elections. And so it's an interesting state, and it's one of the states that normally records higher voter turnout compared to other states in the country. And so I think that is why all eyes are here in Osun. And whatever INEC does here would be used as an assessment on its preparedness for the general elections. The security is also under test here, because we'll also be assessing their conduct here, and we use that to project for the general elections.
All right, Cynthia, thank you so much. We'll go on our first break. When we return, I'll be going straight to Dr. Isa Sanusi, the Executive Director, Amnesty International Nigeria, to also talk on these issues that we're seeing in Osun State. We'll also do a bit of a deep dive into the level of preparation of INEC, of the security forces, and even the voter behavior in the state as we speak. Stay with us, we'll be right back. You're still watching Politics HQ on News Central Television, and of course, I still have my guest. The issue or the topic, in focus this evening is the Osun governorship election, which will be happening, or which will kick off a few hours from now. I'll be going straight to you, Dr. Isa Sanusi, Executive Director, Amnesty International Nigeria. But permit me a bit of a detour. Recently, you did say that Amnesty International will use Senator Francis Fadausi of the APC. That's the senator who, even though he has debunked it, made some very inflammatory remarks concerning security, which are, of course, elicited concerns. You said you would use him as an example. That's Amnesty International. What is the position of Amnesty right now on that matter? If I got it correctly, it might even have issues, you know, in about 100+ countries. So I would like you to speak on that and put some clarity to it, sir.
Well, we have already started taking action, and today we roll out online petition across our social media platforms. The petition is on our website, and we have been asking Nigerians to sign and register their concern about his inflammatory remarks. And that is just the beginning. And what we said we are going to do, we are going to do it fully and to conclusion, because we don't want a situation whereby reckless politicians will be using their position to incite people to kill each other. Even though when this violence break out, they never affect them, they never affect their families, and that is why they are doing it. And this is the first time in recent time that we have a person of this position of a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in public asking people to go and kill other people. I think this is really, really something awful, and all Nigerians must join us in attempting to make sure that no one ever does the same thing again. And let me also bring out the fact that this senator has never apologized. He has never regretted his words. In fact, he is even embarking on, baseless attempts to deviate from the issue. And he is trying to use words to shy away from what he said. And we expected him to apologize and withdraw his words and express regret, and he has not done it yet. And that is really dangerous, and it shows that he thinks that he is above the law, and definitely we have to make sure that no politician could ever do any such inflammatory remarks that will incite the public against other people and will endanger the upcoming election in Osun State.
I mean, this is Amnesty trying to hold a public official there, to account. But many are also wondering, what will be the implication of this petition that you said is open for the general public to sign on? Should that eventually sail through, what are we looking at as an implication, of this, the outcome of this? What would it become, for the senator?
Well, it means that he will become somebody who will be considered as unfit for public for office, either elected or otherwise. And he is supposed to face sanctions globally because he incited violence against people based on political difference. That is what it means. We want to make sure that he become an example of the fact that in Nigeria, in today's world, you can't incite the killing of other people and get away with it, no matter who you are.
All right. I'll come back to you, Dr. Sanusi. Joining this conversation right now is Martin Obono. He's the Executive Director of TAP Initiative. Thank you for joining, Martin. Let me start with you on some statistics. From what we understand, total registered voters, about 2,339,233. PVCs collected, 1,906,390. And of course, looking at all of these numbers, and also the level of preparedness of INEC, even though they say, yes, they're good to go, ad hoc staff are already on standby and all of that. Before we now get into, of course, will I call it a ratio when it comes to electorate across the state, How prepared would you say INEC is in lieu of tomorrow from what you have observed?
So far, I think we need to essentially commend INEC, and that might be might sound because I'm saying this because if you look at what has happened in the last week, where SDP was excluded from the result sheets, and then the courts next to ensure that they are on the ballots. And the speed with which INEC decided to print a new ballot paper and then sensitive materials and bring them back, to Osun State within the time frame, I think it's very commendable. So I think, yes, to a large degree, the preparedness of INEC so far has been good. The number of registered voters and the number of PVCs collected is actually very encouraging because you have less than 500,000 PVCs not collected, and there are various reasons why people may not have collected their PVCs at this time. So I think that so far the preparedness of INEC is commendable in the elections. And usually the preparedness of INEC is not the problem. It is about the operationalization of the elections on the election day. And this is one of the biggest problems and challenges that we've always had with INEC, to see how they operationalize election, how do they conduct themselves on the election day, how do they ensure that everything results, sensitive materials are delivered to the polling units distributed on time, how do they also themselves, especially in terms of election results management and then transmission of that results. So these are all the questions that we are still asking to see, or one of the things that we are watching to ensure that we have the best from INEC and to have that to now show that they are conducting a free, credible and fair elections in Osun State.
All right, let me come straight to you, of course, Dr. Gabriel. Now, if we look at the, what I call it, electorate map out, based on statistics, Osogbo has the highest electorate, about 7.17% of the total registered voters. In number, that's 167,704. Now, about 10 local government areas constitute 47.6% of the entire register due to their population out of the 30 local governments in Osun State. Now, some of these local governments include Ife East, Olorunda, Ife Central, Iwo, Irewole, and quite a number of them. So my question to you is this. 10 local governments, just 10, constitute about 47.6% of a chunk of those that might or will participate tomorrow out of 30 local governments. Do you see a significant impact of this demographic play out tomorrow?
The demography of electorates is very imperative and very pertinent at this time. Of course, there's going to be a large number of concentration, for those living in Osogbo and its environs. I give an example with like River State. In River State, you have Obiakpo local government areas, which is just one local government area, of the 23 local government areas. But the number of registered voters in Obiakpo local government area is more than half of the entire, number of registrants, or the total number of registered voters, across the 23 local government areas. So what do you expect? You expect, electorates to come out, the number of votes that is going to come out from the Osogbo and this area, would be much, much more, comparatively to those that have fewer voting strength. So that is why politicians have really concentrated in Osogbo, where the population is very, very high. So the determinants of the winner of this election would largely be as a result of how the Osogbo dynamics is being played.
All right. Cynthia, do you also think this should be the case? And just also to add to that, There are also concerns around security, even though we know that about 15,000 security personnel have been deployed across the state. But in the build-up to this election, we've had, even on this program, members of the core political parties involved in this trade blames at each other, saying that, look, your party is responsible for the violence and chaos in XYZ, killed this person, or responsible for the death of a couple of other persons. Your party is harboring criminals and all of that. But the biggest concern right now is safety. So do you see that also being a factor playing out in voter behavior tomorrow? Do you see people coming out, or on the flip side, being afraid for their lives and staying back at home?
Well, I think I mean, this could go either ways. And so let's look at what the trend is. First, at the heart of it is that our political parties and candidates and political leaders in general, they lack a sense of accountability, because for me, at the core of leadership is accountability. And so the blame game for it's irresponsible, because if politicians do not deploy thugs, there would be no violence. And so I think it's important we keep calling on the political parties, the candidates, to take responsibility for the actions of those in the field who are causing the mayhem. But the other part you talked about is the fact that this has a likelihood of impacting voter turnout. That is true, because when citizens have a particular sense of fear about participating in the process due to pre-elections violence, it affects their confidence to turn out to vote in their numbers, especially because people do not want to be caught in the middle of danger or violence on elections day. And so there's a likelihood that these, in particular, the pre-elections violence that we observed, could affect how voters turn out. However, if there's anything we've seen in the past few weeks, we've been on ground for a while now, and one of the things we've seen, there's been some level of transition in a way that there's a reduction in incidents of electoral violence, at least in the past couple of days. The security agencies, especially under the leadership of the Nigerian police, they deployed earlier to Osun than they've ever done in other states. And there's been a lot of work going on to bring some calm and normalcy in the state. But in addition, there's a lot of messaging going out to voters to be confident and that their security is assured and that they should turn out and participate. And so we're hoping that regardless of the pre-elections violence, that Nigerians in Osun will still turn out in their numbers to vote. And so I wanted to connect this to also the level of competition, because, there are specific local government that we did identify as hotspots, about 13 local governments from our pre-election assessment. Yaga and other partners, society partners, had identified about 13 local governments that are seen as hotspots. And some of these local governments are also battleground local governments. There are some, if you think about the Ife axis, so Ife South, Ife Central, Ife East, that is usually an interesting battleground area, and two of these, Ife South and Ife East and Central, for one, have a high number of registered voters, and PVC collection rate is also high. But Ife South is one of the battlegrounds. Also, Osogbo was featuring in a lot of the election violence reports, and like you mentioned, Osogbo is a major battleground. It has the highest number of registered voters. If you think of Iwo, Lorunda, also, those are locations that we see as possible battleground, and then even Ede also. And so for us in the engagement, even for security, election security, there are locations that we also believe that security deployment should be intelligence informed, but most importantly, be done in a way to ensure lives and property are secured, but does not become a source of intimidation. So there are two things to this deployment. Yes, we want security adequately deployed, but we also want security conduct that inspires citizens' confidence and not one that intimidates. And so we were hoping to see that balance when it comes to the deployment for these elections. But it's going to be an interesting competition, and this local governments usually feature, if you look at the data, they also have high number of registered voters, but also high levels of PVCs collection. PVCs collected, yes.
So, I'm going to pick up from there and also ask Mr. Bonner the same question. As regards this, will I call it electorate distribution in terms of the demographic and its impact ahead of tomorrow, even though there are also security concerns?
So I think that one of the biggest challenges we have in our electoral process is the political class. Politicians consistently believe that election is do or die. That continues to happen. There will be heightened in the election process. There would also be extreme, situations of contestation. And when there is an extreme case of contestation, there is bound to be violence and incidences like this will definitely happen. And if you notice that in Osun State for the first time, usually when you go to other areas to observe elections and to check out electoral violence and incidences, you are mostly going to worry about the insecurity on ground before the elections. But in this case, what has happened is that the violence is actually occasioned by the elections. So Osun State has been peaceful for the longest time. Osun State has been calm. There has not been this number of escalated violence until these elections came in. And so it brings it's a serious point of concern. And a lot of people have worried and said, okay, why are you deploying over, 30 commissioners of police, one commissioner of police per local government? This is unprecedented. And then you have AIGs and DIGs and then assistant commissioners of police across the length and breadth of the state. But this is also supposed to help, like Cynthia really said, this is let the deployment of security not also deter citizens to come out and vote. It should actually be a confidence booster and a trust booster to say, okay, we trust that when we come out on the 15th, which is tomorrow, to vote, we won't be maimed, we won't be killed, we won't be attacked. As it has been threatened in a lot of quarters, that anybody who comes out to vote a certain political party is toying with their lives, or they will kill the person, or they will maim the person. So we are hoping that the security operatives that are going to be on ground, that are already on ground, will carry out their work professionally in such a way that they protect the lives and properties of citizens who would come out to vote, and also boost the confidence of those who want to really participate. So that the 1.9 PVCs collected so far.
We'll go on a quick break. When we return, of course, we'll be taking our final remarks on this. Stay with us. We'll be right back. You're still watching Politics HQ on News Central Television. And of course, we are looking at the Osun State governorship election, which will be happening just a few hours from now, and the build up to this particular election. I still have Isa Sanusi, the Executive Director, Amnesty International Nigeria, of course, as my guest. I also have Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs, Yaga Africa, Dr. Owambu Gabriel, DG, Center for Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness, and also Martin Obono, Executive Director, TAP Initiative. Let me quickly take your final thoughts on this. Dr. Sanusi, the election is just a few hours away. A lot has happened to this build-up. What do you see playing out tomorrow, particularly when it comes to security, when it comes to the voters themselves, and even the behavior of politicians? Okay, I understand that Dr. Sanusi, is offline. Let me direct that question to you, Cynthia, in 30 seconds.
Well, I think for one, we just want proper security management, deployment, and effective logistics management from the Electoral Commission because of the delays in moving to the racks today. So we're hoping that we have early commencement of polls. Because of the competitive nature of these elections, we want to ensure that there is compliance of the electoral guidelines, the Electoral Act, and the INEC guidelines for elections, especially as it relates to the results management process. Remember that Osun in 2018 was inconclusive. Historically, it's a competitive and close election, so the numbers must count because every number, every vote could be important in determining the conclusiveness or otherwise of an election. So it's a big call on INEC to ensure everything operation-wise, logistics-wise, are properly already put in place, and for the security to ensure adequate security for the elections. And to Osun voters, please turn out in your numbers and vote, because at the end of the day, election is for the people of Osun, and your vote is the most important thing that will be happening tomorrow.
How about you, Dr. Gabriel?
Yeah, well, I do believe that INEC has so far demonstrated capacity, in terms of reprinting the sensitive materials, following the judgment of an appeal court mandating INEC to recognize the SDP candidate and his running mate. The ability of INEC to have, done this shows that INEC has demonstrated very good capacity and has succeeded in distributing the materials, from the local government down to the RAC centers. And this is a very, very good one. However, we would want the security agencies to be on ground and stamp their foot. Do not allow, one Nigerian or a few Nigerians to, disrupt, democratic process. In fact, the rights of citizens would be grossly violated when there are impediments, in the process of elections, especially this time that Nigeria is designated as a country of particular concern. So for security operatives, we want them to also put their checks on politicians who have actually made the inflammatory statements capable of causing the breakdown of law and order. They should make sure that no Nigerian, I'm not talking about Osun, no Nigerian, life is lost in this election. And that is our own submission.
All right. I would have... Martin, can you just put your submission in strictly 30 seconds?
I would like to say that the people of Osun State should really come out and vote tomorrow without fear of intimidation. And we hope that INEC will do the right thing. But if they don't do the right thing, especially in terms of transmission results, election results, we have iReports INEC, and iReports INEC is downloadable on App Store and Google Play Store, where people can actually use to send results in and report all the electoral incidences that might be happening around themselves. So in case IREF fails tomorrow, iReports is also there for you. We can compare whatever comes out from IREF and then compare it with what is coming out on iReports INEC to make sure that the election is complete.
We need to go. Thank you so much, gentlemen and ladies. It's been great having you on the program this evening. We just hope that tomorrow will be peaceful and smooth. Definitely News Central will be on ground to cover everything as it happens in Osun State tomorrow. My name is Dakbo Adigboyo.